Well, here we are again with another episode of the Nailsin Ratings. It's time to look at Fear the Walking Dead episode named Laura. Last week was so bad I didn't give it any stars. Instead, I gave it the toilet flush. But this one gives us the backstory, primarily I would say, for Cowboy John, the new friend that Morgan encountered on his way into the Fear the Walking Dead show. And Cowboy John sometimes came across a little over the top as the cowboy and this sort of thing, but he fit in other ways, and of course comparisons to Althea, who is just a terrible character. The only thing that could be worse than Althea is when, and I'm sure they will, when they cast the princess character from the comic book, which, well, even if they got rid of the princess, the comic book's still in bad shape, and I'm about ready to drop it. But anyway, this episode was good. Now, the problem is the franchise is bad. And I mean Walking Dead in total. It's fallen from great moments, and now it's just terrible. But every now and then you get these good episodes. There weren't so many in The Walking Dead proper, or Prime or whatever, but in Fear the Walking Dead you had a fantastic episode with the character Daniel in the previous season, and it really elevated the series, even though it had weaker episodes. Some were just episodes that were okay but had a few flaws in it and that sort of thing, which to my mind meant the last season of Fear the Walking Dead was superior to the last season of The Walking Dead, and even this current season that just ended. So here we are in the new one with the magical crossover with Morgan, and that was hit and miss here and there. Morgan is a much better character than quite a few of Fear the Walking Dead. As I've said repeatedly, the best characters are Daniel, Madison, and Victor, and that's about it. Nick is no longer with us, and that's just as well, although his send-off was pretty good. But the last episode, it's bad. So sometimes I think, oh, gee, by comparison, that makes this one really good. And I think to a large extent that's true. But anyway, this was very good. The story is very, very simple. You've got they're detailing you the backstory of Naomi, who this John called Laura, and the last episode was revealed that she's dead. Or is she? Well, until we see the death, I'm not certain that she is. But for now, John is under the impression that this woman he loves is gone. So we get the story of how they met and what happened. He touched on it earlier on, and we get to see the whole ordeal. He's isolated and alone in his cabin, and he's surviving with his knowledge and abilities of fishing and what have you, and finding berries and all this sort of thing to live off of. And occasionally he's living on this river, and the zombies show up and he takes them out, and so on and so forth. And then, here comes Laura, as he calls her, and she's badly wounded. He helps her, and she's desperate to leave as soon as she can, but they become close over the time, and it takes a while for her to go. And I say it's simple, and it is. Basically, you get right off the bat, she's running away from something. Oh, what is she running away from? Well, we discover she lost a child. We don't know how or why, but we can guess and surmise that it's because of the apocalypse, that's what happened. And then what's his deal? Well, he refuses to use his guns, and she's like, why? And at first it's like, well, they're more trouble than they're worth, or what have you, or they cause more problems than they're worth. And you figure, because it draws the zombies when you shoot it, which is true. You kind of want to hold off on that to the last resort, but he won't use them at all. And we discover, before the apocalypse, he had been a police officer, echoes of Rick Grimes here, and he stopped a robbery and shot a man he intended to simply wound him, but the man turned at the last minute and it hit a main artery apparently, and he bled to death. And the town held him as a hero for stopping the robber, but he couldn't get over his guilt of having taken a life, and so he becomes this sort of recluse before the apocalypse, and then the apocalypse happens, and so there he is. And so her story is running away because of her child, but not just because of the child, but because she's terrified of becoming attached to anybody. And so she wants to be alone, because that way she can't feel that pain again of losing somebody. Well, too late. She fell in love with this man. He fell in love with her. And it's all the strength of like I said, the story is simplistic, but the strength of the performances of these actors carries the show, and they do very well. And kudos to them. I don't know their names, but and these are relatively new characters, but they flesh them out very quickly in this one show. That's probably the only one they're going to get. It's just to them. I mean, at this point, I'm like, just continue the series with them. Go on. But anyway. That's the strength of the show, and the story and what have you. So the weaknesses of the show would be, I'd have to say, scenes like when he finally uses his guns because she's being overwhelmed by the zombies at their cabin, and as soon as he's through shooting them all, he does the gunslinger, what do you call it, the flip or twirl of the guns, you know. So, I mean, I guess you could pass it off to say that that's his habit of doing it, and it just comes to him naturally. He doesn't even realize he's doing it. But then that brings to mind, is that what he did when he shot the robber? Like he's, a Lone Ranger or something. So there's that. Plus, the zombies, when they finally, the walkers, okay, whatever. When they finally invade the cabin, he and Laura put this barrier on the bridge there, which is why they keep the walkers will stumble and fall off, and they end up being carried by the current, and they end up at his house. So they build up this barrier and to block them from doing that. But unfortunately, a small herd of walkers show up and they overwhelm it. Well, it's kind of like, why are they attracted to the area? The only thing I can surmise here is that while they were doing this with the Jeep and everything, a walker attacks, and he really needed to shoot it, and she's telling him to shoot it, and he won't do it. And he ends up just tearing it apart with a knife, and there's blood everywhere. And I would have to assume that some of the blood is his. He's not bitten, which is this odd thing about the water. Even if you get some of their blood in you with a cut or something, you're not affected. You would turn, but yeah, okay. So I guess that is what attracted the walkers, was remnants of his blood. Because otherwise, they want to get in that Jeep, and it's just some old dead zombie in it. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And as a result, they overpower the barrier, and they all fall through, and they end up at the cabin, and they wake up and they got to do the fight and all that. And they defeat all the walkers, and fine and dandy. And boy, good thing it happened on a full moon too, because if it didn't, oh boy, would you be in trouble. But they do, and it works out. And so, but that plus the twiddling the guns is kind of weak, and but not enough to ruin the whole episode. And it's all very touching, and they love each other, but they're too broken and in pain, and she can't bear to lose him, so she leaves and disappears. And now the whole series is set up with, it's a flashback series, so the present is shot in this desaturated look, and when you see the past, it's all in rich color. So this starts off with just his story, and then you get you're back to the present or future, or however you want to put it, and it reveals that he's telling this whole story to Morgan, because the last we saw them, Morgan and John are alone together. The rest of the group took off, and it makes perfect sense. And Morgan is a character who fully understands Laura, because why is Morgan in this show? Because he did the exact same thing she did, and he can't bear to lose people, and it drove him insane. as you saw, sometimes a little over the top in The Walking Dead. But that's what ultimately I'm out, I'm gone. And now you meet somebody, you want people, it's very impossible to do. But it also explains Laura, because she wanted to leave Madison's group. You know, as soon as she's well and able, she wants to leave because she doesn't want to be attached to them and care about them because she'll lose them. And so that's the whole thing. It's actually quite simplistic, but again, the performances are so well done, it carries it out. It doesn't really matter oftentimes if the plot is simple. It just matters the execution, and this time the execution is very well. And like I said, the weaknesses weren't enough to pull me out of the story where I'm going, oh, come on, and I'm irritated and mad. No, it's there, but it's not so bad as other shows that are pretty awful. So all the way around, good episode of Fear the Walking Dead, Laura. So this is 5 out of 5 stars. Again, this brings me back to the interesting thing of what would it have been if all the episodes were this strong or stronger. Then this would probably be maybe 4 or maybe even 3.5 or something along those lines. But in comparison to overall of the Walking Dead franchise, this is a damn good episode, so I'm giving it 5 out of 5 stars. So there you go, Fear the Walking Dead. There are diamonds in the rough, but overall, do I think this franchise can go on? No. If it wasn't for my respect and love of the original run of the franchise, I would not be still watching this show. It's just, people call it hate watching. But I don't know what it is. I guess I'm just stuck here. So it's a fascinating exercise, I suppose, of watching this. But if it becomes to where I'm going to have to choose for something that's far better on the same night or what have you, well, yeah, I guess that'll be the end of it. But anyway, there you go. 5 out of 5 stars for Fear the Walking Dead, Laura. We'll do it again next time. And do like and subscribe. I thank you for watching and listening. And check out the link description below for links to my mini stores that has tons of goodies for you. And also a link to my podcast, the Mr Nailsin Show on RadioMisfits.com. New episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. All right. Again, thank you for watching and listening. And if you want to watch more of my videos, check out the rest of the channel. There's plenty there. But for now, bye-bye.